This is Jack Joseph Puig, a man whom you know by name and reputation. I like to pull one thing out of his bio every year to feature, and this year it's the fact that you are the man who does all of the crows. You do the black crows, you do the counting crows, and you do the Sheryl crows.
All the crows.
Which is very impressive. Last year, Jack did a feature on a compression for us, and I learned more in 45 minutes from Jack on compression than I've learned in 30 years on my own trying to bang into the walls. Today, he's here to talk about how to get the most out of your vocals. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jack Joseph Puig.
So I wonder if you can talk about all of the different sends that you have going on, and maybe how, like, in what proportion you're sending your vocal to the various different sends that you have set up. Maybe what they do, if you could just describe it, even if we can't exactly hear what they're doing.
Well, what I can describe is that obviously the thing that's always important. Look, I have mixed feelings about what I'm about ready to say. So, again, when you travel around here in the next 3 days, people are going to show you, like, this is my template, right? I have mixed feelings about that. I mean, I understand the template because it's fast, it's easy, it's dependable, it's there. It makes you feel a little bit secure. You know that this works, that works. But it doesn't allow you sometimes to, explore. I'm going to tell you something I shouldn't say. All right, I shouldn't say this. I really shouldn't. But I like to say certain things because I feel like people, it's good for them to learn about it. So I'm at a dinner table at Bob Clearmountain's house. And I don't know if people who know who Bob Clearmountain is, but a lot of us think he is one of the absolute best ever. It's Bob Clearmountain, myself, and a guy named Chris Isaak, the three of us. And Bob says, somehow we get to the conversation about starting mixes. And Chris is like, yeah, well, I just put up the next song, and whatever it is, I just fucking whack that shit up. And and Bob's like, what do you mean? He goes, well, I just like turn up the, well, you mean you don't like just start like, here's this, and listen to it? Goes, no, man, I have all that shit already in there. I just like, move the shit around. And however it hits the fucking compressors, that's how it hits that shit. Talk to the fucking Grammys. And Bob and I just look at each other like, well, why would you not listen to the song and then like pull up each fader, listen to it, get an understanding of what it is and how you might like want to create it, how you might want to like, what perspective you think it should be, what the song feels about. And, both those two people I just mentioned are very successful. They do it entirely different. And think that each other's wrong, vehemently, right? Because I was in the middle like, yeah, well, it's cool, but they would have gotten, kind of like in a fight over it. So, all that to say that one uses the template and one kind of doesn't use the template. One has things that he knows he can go to, and one is like, it's a template. This comes up, this goes here, this channel goes there, this goes there, that goes there. They both make hit records, right? So, it's important, I guess you can say, I've given you both perspectives on the template. So here, there's a template, immediately have all the obvious things I said that you should not ignore. So there's the pitch thing I explained, a freeze reverb, that you can hit and it just holds that note, whatever it is that you're doing, the effect. A distorted quarter note is obvious. A queen thing, which is like a very, short delay that goes back and forth. Again, we can't hear it in these headphones. 16th note delay. These owl delays, I kind of stole, frankly, from 311 when I worked with 311. 311 had really cool sounding repetitive delays. And I did a few mixes for them. And I just loved their settings, so I stole them and I called them Owl. I guess the song we were working on, that particular song was called Owl. So I stole it for them, even though I'm taking full credit. And then you have all your obvious things, like a typical quarter note, typical eighth note, delay. You want to always have a throw, that's just ready to go, a nice long throw that's ready to go for a certain word, a certain line. All those things are your typical things, different kind of filtered delays, compressed differently, EQ differently, filtered, whatever. You can have all those things set up on the sends. These are all typical. They seem like, well, but they're not fancy, but when you get them all right, like the high octave harmo I talked about, you get the delays right, you get the mondo thing, which I can't show you, the stereo thing moving right, and you get what that magic fader I'm talking about, all those highs, and you get that right, and you get the compression right, you get the attack of the voice right, it's very clear and easy, intelligible to understand, and fits with the kick and the snare and the top end of the bass and the hi-hat. Because when you're balancing, people talk about how balancing is the most important thing, and it is, but you also want to balance, you want to be able to go down to what I would call the expert page. So let's say the non-expert page is just balancing, right? The mix, whatever you have, you're balancing it the best you can. The expert page is now going down to the next level and going, okay, now I'm going to balance attacks, right? How much transit designer, whichever the one you used, if that's on a hi-hat, a snare, a kick, a guitar, or whatever it is, there are many, many transit designers now, like 30 of them. And you get those attacks where it's really pumping. Now, are you when you listen at a real low level, are all those attacks hitting exactly together? And are they, the next expert pages, are they the same kind of attack sound? Is one real flubby and one real bright? So does that cause another level of confusion in how the ear perceives where things are sitting in the bar line? Does that make sense? Then, which I can't show because we're distorting here, same thing with the voice. You want the attacks, the consonants of the voice to line up in the same way with all those things. So when you play the record, it just moves and swings and it feels like it's a unit. Does that make sense? Simple, but simplicity is a lot of things I think sometimes we miss. And my concern is that with the preset generation, which a lot of you are part of, you're just getting the preset, which are a lot more effing great, right? But not understanding how that preset was made and why it was made, along the lines of what I just said. Did I answer your question?
So, Jack, real quick,
Yeah.
How did you deal with the sibilance? You had quite an extreme high-end boost on the voice. How do you deal with sibilance at that point?
Well, it depends. I like using the F6 a lot. So let's see if I have an F6 on this session. I probably do. I am a real sucker for dynamic EQ. So I'm just going to pull one up. I think that this is one of the best ways to actually do it. Where are you? There you are. I think this is one of the best ways to do it. And what I generally do is I will grab, this is not let me down yet. I'll grab the EQ point, right? And I'll sweep it to what I'm really feeling like, okay, there's that sibilance, that 7 point, making up something, 7.4K, and then I will go down to the Q here and see how much of it I want to grab out, or maybe I want to grab a little bit more. And once I have that, option, okay, that's back to nothing. And then I bring in the threshold and how much of it I want to either add, if it's something I want to add, in the case of sibilance, how much I want to take away. And what's great about that, of course, is that it's dynamic. So it's going to grab some sibilance greater than others. The de-essers that we know about nowadays that are just literally a de-esser are not sufficient. They really aren't. That's how I deal with it for the most part.
Cool. Additional questions? You had a question right here.
Yeah, hi. My question would be, what exactly is your workflow typically for just vocals? Like, what exactly would you do when you have a vocal that's dry in front of you? And how exactly do you turn that into a vocal that's ready to be set in the mix? Thanks.
So again, it's understanding, what the song is. An acoustic guitar, simple song, singer-songwriter song would make me want to go one direction. If I was mixing Katy Perry, I would go a different direction. It would depend on what I'm working on. But generally, I quickly get a balance up that makes sense and understand what the song is saying, and then start to create the mood around the voice. The most important thing always, in my opinion, when I start, is I try to actually fix things. Like I don't. This is another a point that we could argue about. I don't necessarily like having an assistant that does everything. I have assistants, but I don't like them to do everything. I want to do it because I want to discover. I want to find things myself. If it's fixed for me and handed to me, then there's no discovery, if that makes sense. So part of that discovery process, part of what I would do is I'd pull up that voice and then I'd listen to it. Is it distorted? Is it sibilant? Is it too bright? Is it not bright enough? Does it feel like it's too dark? What does it need? Just to get it in the ballpark of what makes sense, right? And then I will start setting it to some of the effects and see how it's feeling with the track and where it wants me to go. It's almost impossible to fully answer that to probably the likeness you like, because the truth of the matter is, with creativity, it's magic. It's like you can't put it in a bottle, and you have to just follow where the butterfly takes you.
Additional questions? Wow, all kinds of questions. I saw your hand up first.
Yeah, how you doing? Going back to the reverb, the left mono and right reverb. Yeah. What I sometimes like to do is I use more than one reverb. I don't pan. I use, like a small room maybe, and then a long, bright one. But I like what you were saying. But do you use the same reverb, left, mono, and right? Or do you use like a small room in the middle and then maybe a different reverb pan to the left, mono, and then a different, or do you use the same one?
So
you understand?
Yes, I do understand.
Right, thank you.
And in this session, there are multiple reverbs, quite a few, right? But for the left, center, right, I like them to be the same. Because for me, what they are is placing things in a way that is separate but connected. So effectively, it's like, okay, I didn't record this, I wasn't a part of this, but I want to have an effect of what it was like in that room, essentially, where things were in that room. I want to create a visual.
So you would send a mono to one,
Absolutely.
Mono to the second?
Yes.
Okay, that's awesome. All right,
Yes.
Thank you.
Somebody in the front row had one question. No? Okay. Jack, you have time for a couple more?
Yeah, I'm in no rush.
Cool.
Hi, Jack. My question to you is, even at this stage, do you have like a reference track, or are you ever referencing your mixes?
So when I first started, I had 3 mentors, and my first mentor always said to me, you have to be very careful when you're A/B. And I didn't really realize until I was running my own sessions how much he was right. Because it's very easy to chase the low end. If you look at records like Drake's records or The Weeknd's records, they have like more low end than almost anyone. Stupid amount of bottom end, right? And actually they don't play well on certain systems because of that low end. So what I normally do is my brain is let me say something. To do what we are doing here is a lifestyle. Everyone needs to understand that if you want to do this, this is a lifestyle. This becomes, and I say this in the Me Too world, but just understand, this becomes the other woman in your life. It's responsible for divorces, it's responsible for missing weddings, it's responsible for missing birthdays. It is the other woman in your life from a man's perspective, right? It is the other woman in your life. So, because it's that way for me, I'm always listening. So when it comes to references, lots of times if I'm no matter where I am, I'm always listening. If I hear something come on the radio or something in a restaurant or whatever, I like the way that sounds. Immediately Shazam, add it to my list of reference on the spot. As soon as I get back to the studio, I listen to it. Is it as good as I thought it was? What did I hear there that I thought was good there? And then that becomes a reference. So it could be a reference of how much mid-range that mix had, where the voice was sitting, or how bright something was, or how the low end was working. What can I learn from that?
So you don't necessarily A/B now, like you don't put it in a session and start.
I used to. I think what happens is you get to a place when you have so much time and experience doing it that you don't need that anymore. Right. In some ways, the references are a little bit of training wheels, kind of. Right. I mean, that could come off as arrogant. I don't mean it that way whatsoever. No. But it's better if you can get to a place where you finally find a pair of speakers that you really know well, and you have a room sounding well, and you just know. And you can feel it in your body like when it's right. That's the object. but it takes time to get there, and you got to screw up, and you still will screw up even after you think you've got it all nailed. You're still gonna f up.
Right. Thank you, Jack. Thank you.
Let's get somebody from this side.
Hey, Jack. In terms of your vocal mix and how you balance in your sends, like the magic, and I think you had more of like kind of the beefier low end of the voice. How much processing are you doing on the like original vocal track that is actually recorded on, and then how do you decide on how you balance the other sends?
So in terms of that, it depends on. Let me see if this is an example. Okay, it is not. So let's see here. So I kind of do very similar thing I was just talking about with the F6. I might listen to something like this and go like, oh, I'm hearing a lot of top end, not hearing as much low end as I would like. And maybe something's not right in the mid-range, kind of. So first thing I would do is I go. So when I hear that there, let's see, what is it? 177. When I hear that there, I hear, to put into words, I hear more mystery in what she's saying. So you really hear it right on the no. So I might have done something like that and go like, that's pretty cool. And then I would come down here, like I said, plan that out. So I'm not stuck with EQ where I'm like, I like that, and then I add X amount of whatever the frequency is, and then I'm stuck for the whole song. And I'm not with this. It moves around where that hole is. Another reason why I like doing this and this kind of approach is I want you to listen when I play it without the dynamic EQ, right? It's kind of going to what I was talking about earlier, which is it's one playing. And then when I turn the EQ on, the dynamic EQ, you can see it moving like this, and so is she moving like that. All of a sudden she has a feel that she actually didn't even have. If you listen to it every time, so it's just sitting there, it's like not doing anything. Now listen. Yeah, that's the expert page of like going in and getting the attacks and making it move.
And so the processing on the vocal the main vocal bus is to add feel to the vocal, as opposed to like where your magic bus is like for kind of coloration and to add.
It's for coloration and attitude. right?
Yeah.
And then after you're all done, it's like, okay, is this thing locked? You know, is it moving with the track, or just sitting there? You know?
Got it.
Because when she's singing it, lots of times, you know, because this happens a lot with overcompression. You know, people compress quite a bit, right? And then it just sits there and it doesn't have any attacks. Attacks don't move. So you can see what that's doing there. Is that clear to everybody? I mean, that alone, if you leave with just that, it's been worth your time. Literally.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we have time for one more question for Jack. One thing I wanted to mention is on your way out, please leave your headsets and belt packs on your chair, if you would, please. Just drape them over the back. That'd be great. Last question.
Hey, Jack. So my question is, like continuity throughout a record. Do you think about that consciously? Are there things that you do to kind of keep the continuity between the songs? And if you're mixing something that's, say, recorded in a bunch of different studios, how do you deal with that?
So I think that is something that doesn't maybe matter nearly as much as it used to. I think that when people had the patience to sit down and listen to an entire record, right? Or even a compact disc, that might have mattered. I think now it's a collection of songs. You know, the mixtape really kind of pushed it in that direction. And then additionally, I think it'd also be fair to say that if you think about, let's go to the forefathers, the Beatles, right? Those songs did not sound the same. One of the things that we really liked is we'd put the song on and, Octopus Garden would come on and sounded one way, and then another song would come on and sounded another way, and you're just like, it was all about that song and that feeling to get that across to you. I think that that's a much better way to go than to be concerned about, not that you're saying this, but as an example for everybody, you know, the exact same drum sound, the exact same bass sound, the voice is always this. Like, I don't think that works that way, because I don't think the songs are that way. You know, I think the forefathers had it right.
Oh, hello. Hi. And of course I have to ask the final question, which is where do you stand with breaths? Like if you listen to a Demi Lovato record, the breaths are as loud or louder than the vocal. And I guess that's percussion, that's opportunism.
The best thing about breaths is clip gain. Thank God for clip gain. Clip gain is so awesome because now you can determine how much of that breath is in there easily. You know, you can go in and like, okay, I want this breath to be a little quieter, louder. You know, it depends what it is. Of course, if there's the band stops and it's silent, you might not want a breath into it. You might want the surprise, or you might want the emotion of, right? So it's just all art again. It's deciding what you want.
And did you do that kind of shaping in this song?
In this song, yes. On the stem that go on the voice, this is the stem. I did that. Sometimes I'll do stems prior to mixing too. I process them. If something comes to me that's like really like just dead, I might do some of that kind of processing prior, so that when I pull faders up, it gives me something right away. It's why I think a stereo bus is important. The last thing I'll say is that whatever you're using for your stereo bus, I can't show it here obviously because I don't have all my gear with me, but I have serious hopped up stereo bus. I've spent a lot of time figuring it out so that when I pull things up, it just right away sounds really good and it feeds me, makes me excited. I think that's very, very important.
Cool. Last word. Ladies and gentlemen, masterclass in vocals, in mono, no less. Amazing. Mr. Jack Joseph Puig. Let's hear it for him.